Hello, good morning, good morning, good morning. Here we are. We are making it through our week, aren't we? We are at March 24th, and I'm excited. This week's been a crazy week, but it's been a good week. Can't really complain with that. And it's so good to see you guys in here. Skinny, Miss Marilee, Lynette, so good to see you, love. Today, well, we might as well face it because you're addicted to love. That's what we're going to be talking about today. What is a love addiction, right? Does love addiction even really exist? Is it such a thing? Hmm. Very controversial, I must say. But we're going to dive into that. I'm going to answer several questions for you today. One, is it real? What are the characteristics of love addiction? Why do love addictions form? What types of partners do love addicts choose? And what is the cycle? And finally, how can somebody recover from a love addiction? So that's where we're going today. I hope you guys are doing awesome. I hope your morning is going awesome, and we're going to kind of dive into this for a little bit. Now, while the term love addiction may be controversial among mental health professionals, having an overwhelming or obsessive compulsion toward love or a loved one is not uncommon. Love addictions are formed as a defense against psychological pain in most cases. Love addicts have a fantasy of being rescued by their loved one and often believe that this one person can somehow make them okay. They have too high an opinion of the object of their affection and too low an opinion of themselves. Now, because of this, love addicts pour far too much time and energy into their relationship while neglecting their own well being, family, friendships, and sometimes even career. So, are love addictions real? Now, it's important to note that love addiction has not been classified as an official diagnosis. Many mental health professionals take great issue with attaching the designation of an addiction to what is considered a passion related behavior. However, the term love addiction can be very useful in understanding specific problematic relationship patterns and behaviors. It can also be helpful in shedding light on how to break a deeply rooted psychological compulsion. Now, love addiction has similar characteristics and cycles to other addictions. So let's look at this for a minute. Definitions of addiction range from narrow to broad. So, an addiction can be defined as a physical or psychological dependence on a mind altering substance. It can also be a brain disorder characterized by compulsion engagement in rewarding stimuli despite adverse consequences. And next, a dependence on or compulsion to any substance or behavior. Now, love addiction is similar to other addictions in that it is formed as a defense against unresolved pain. And like other addictions, love addiction focuses increasingly on the object of the addiction at the detriment of the love addict. The typical love addict loses interest in activities outside of their addiction. So furthermore, the addiction causes problems with family, friends, work. And when the addiction is interrupted, well, the addict's going to feel this intense emotional withdrawal aspect. And that can become very crippling and debilitating. So let's talk about the characteristics. Now, love addiction is defined by a specific set of characteristics and behaviors. Possibly the most significant characteristic of love addiction is that we assign too much time and value to another person. Someone with a love addiction focuses almost entirely on the object of their desire. And this often obsessive focus begins to have a very negative effect on the rest of their life. Love addicts neglect to care for or even value themselves while they're in that relationship. Love addictions involve a great deal of fantasy. So, as we're going to talk about in a minute, love addictions form as a result of painful childhood experiences. Consequently, love addicts often have a fantasy of being rescued, It's as if the person that they're longing for is the only person in the entire universe who has the power to take away their pain, give them everything they longed for and never got as a child, and makes them feel safe, valued, worthy. This magical thinking leads love addicts to cling to the relationship, even when the relationship itself is flawed. Now, often these relationships are deeply flawed. Love addicts tend to select partners who have a fear of intimacy and will neglect the relationship. Yet, the love addict maintains a fantasy that everything will get better, their partner's going to change, and they will finally receive the love and fulfillment that they so desperately crave. Love addicts overlook major red flags in their partners. They are often at odds with friends and family who continually encourage them to find someone better. But a love addict, they do not want to find someone better. Rather, they want to uncover a better version of the person they're with. And additionally, love addicts tend to have low believe that if they only improve themselves, for example, by losing weight or removing character flaws, etc., that their partner will suddenly offer them the relationship of their dreams. And this fantasy becomes like a lifeline, and it keeps the relationship going. So it's just, you just keep fueling bad. It's like you keep fueling the negative behavior, the negative, the fantasy aspect. So instead of developing mature intimacy, love addicts seek to, enmesh, merge, get completely connected to their partners. And this type of enmeshed intimacy can be described as a fantasy bond, an illusion of connection and closeness between two people that is, you know, substituted for feelings of real love and intimacy. And it's a scary and harmful place to form. Now, how does this form? The roots of love addiction extend back to early childhood. A history of abandonment, neglect, inadequate or inconsistent nurturing can lead to love addiction. And like other addictions, love addiction is often a result of insecure attachment patterns. Attachment patterns develop during the first 18 months of life because of how, the primary caregiver, usually the mother, interacts with the infant. So for the infant to develop secure attachment, the child must feel safe, seen, soothed. You know, the way the caregiver relates to their child at times when the child is upset or in distress is extremely important. It's of utmost importance. A securely attached child will consistently turn to their partner for comfort and connection when they're upset, get soothed, calm down, and then go back to whatever they were doing. Insecure attachment develops when a parent is unable to consistently soothe their child. And in this scenario, the upset child turns to their parent for comfort and connection, but they get ignored. Or their parent's just too anxious or distracted to properly soothe them. Or they're scolded or even abused for crying and having needs. Now, how attuned the parent is to their child at times of distress over time forms an attachment pattern that follows the child into adult relationships. Most love addicts had a parent or parents that were not attuned to them as small children. They were unable to meet their child's primary needs for love, connection, and validation. And this lack of parental nurturance, or worse, parental rejection, is extremely painful to a child. So the child, and later the adult, takes refuge in a fantasy of love to avoid the pain, to make up for what was lost, to try to reattach or reassemble something that's going to make more sense. Love addiction develops when reality is too painful for the conscious mind to manage. And so, a fantasy version of a loved one and of life with that person develops to try to recreate, to remold something that becomes more soothing, more comforting, more of something that I'm going to make and form my own connection that I didn't have prior. The love addict's behavior comes from an unconscious place of pain due to trauma from abuse, usually emotional, physical, or even sexual, and or neglect that occurred early in life. So by focusing on someone else, the pain of trauma and or neglect is avoided, remaining unconscious. Therefore, a love addict's needs in adult relationships feel so enormous. And it's because they weren't met early on. Now let's talk about what type of partners do love addicts choose? Now, when it comes to love addiction, it takes two to tango, right? A love addict will unconsciously look for a partner who avoids intimacy in most cases, sometimes referred to as love avoidance. Okay? And love avoidance consciously and greatly fear intimacy because they believe that they will be drained, engulfed, controlled by it. And often these people were drained, engulfed, or controlled by the emotions and needs of others when they were small children. Often, avoidance does not show itself in the very beginning of a relationship. The love avoidant might be the one who initially comes on strong and does the wooing. However, as a relationship progresses, their fear of intimacy becomes heightened and they begin to push their partner away. I'm going to share with you 3 ways that love avoidants typically avoid intimacy. Number 1, limiting intensity within a relationship by creating more intensity in activities, often addictions beyond the relationship. Number 2, avoiding being truly known by their partner to protect themselves from being controlled or engulfed by the other person. And number 3, restricting intimate contact with their partner through a variety of distancing techniques. Now, essentially, love addicts are attracted to people who are not able to meet their needs. So even though love addicts feel as though they want a close relationship more than anything else in this world, they unconsciously choose partners that avoid closeness at all costs. And this relationship dynamic creates a very toxic cycle that, though very painful, distracts the love addict from focusing on the actual unresolved pain of their early childhood. That cycle is what creates this toxic existence emotionally, consciously and subconsciously. So let's look at the cycle. The love addict tends to follow very typical set parameters, typical cycles. 1, in the initial stage of attraction, both partners are very drawn to one another. Okay? As they get involved, the love addict forms a fantasy of being rescued. At the same time, their partner begins to put up walls to avoid the real intimacy. The love addict becomes enamored with a fantasy and is blind to real flaws in the relationship and their partner. And the relationship becomes the center of their universe and they start to think about it, incessantly. Meanwhile, the avoidant partner begins to pull away more and more, sensing their partner's neediness and leads them to kind of resent the relationship. And when the avoidant partner pulls away, the love addict's fear of abandonment, boom, is triggered. And now they're going to cling on even more. They're going to latch on even tighter. Next, the love addict becomes frustrated and upset. So no matter how much energy they pour into the relationship, they can't seem to make it work. They try to fix themselves, still clinging to the fantasy that their partner is perfect or, quote unquote, going to change. And at this point, the avoidant partner may be distancing themselves further and further from that relationship, potentially abusing sometimes alcohol, turning to drugs, having an affair, whatever the case may be. And then eventually, the love addict starts to recognize their partner's bad behavior, and they may lash out with emotional outbursts, for example. They may act compulsively, creating arguments, creating fights to try to bring or snap things back around. And the last point there is feeling ashamed of their own bad behavior. The love addict apologizes and returns once again to the fantasy that things are going to work out. They will make themselves blind to the common sense, the logic, the red flags, because they don't want to face that. I don't want to face that this is not working. I'm going to face that, no, this is going to change. It's going to change. They're going to change. They love me enough. This is all going to work out. Meanwhile, that way of thinking is digging you deeper into that toxic pit. Now, how can somebody recover from love addiction? Well, the first step in recovering from love addiction is to recognize the problem. Like fighting any addiction, the process can be challenging. Feelings of withdrawal may arise. Now, that has been a very interesting conversation with a lot of people. They're like, you can't withdraw. You don't have withdrawal symptoms from love. Well, you do. You can have withdrawal symptoms from the emotion. You can have withdrawal symptoms from the fact that you are now not getting something that you have created that you need, and have latched onto so very hard. Recovering love addicts may have to face unresolved childhood pain. However, with help, people can break the pattern of love addiction and go on to form very beautiful, awesome, intimate relationships. Many people, when people have come to me, in dealing with this is the very first thing I'm going to do is we're going to start breaking things down. So you start taking small parts, small. We start dealing with all these things that have layered up, usually since childhood. Now there's 4 phases of recovery from love addiction. Okay. The first step is to address any other addictive processes, such as alcoholism, eating disorders, drugs, whatever that is. We have to identify that first. Okay. The second step is to disengage from the addictive part of the relationship process. Next, the third step is to find help. Get a therapist, get a life coach, get somebody that's going to be able to work with you on this, to help deal with the unresolved childhood portion. Most people who recover from toxic relationships as adults first need therapy to help with their internal residue of unresolved stuff that was long before that relationship even happened. And the fourth step is to work on the underlying codependent symptoms. So in closing, if a recovering love addict is not currently in a relationship, it is especially important that they pay close attention to the type of partner they may be drawn to when entering new relationships. Otherwise, they're just going to repeat the same destructive relationship dynamics over and over again. The more that love addicts begin to recognize, articulate, and understand their role in this addiction, well, the easier it is to break the cycle. By understanding their past and resolving traumas from childhood, they can now develop a much more inner security, a different self-awareness, a different self-love, a different self-care pattern in order to navigate away from the toxic behavior, away from the things that of the avoidance of dealing with our inner traumas or our inner childhood pain and so forth, so that we're not now trying to project that into the new relationship. Love addiction, it is a real thing, my friends, but it is also manageable. It is something that can be overcome. And that's what I have for you today. Now, I would like to open this stage up if anybody would like to come up and share some views on this, share a thought. Going to bring up my friend Anna here. Anna, hello, how are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm good. I am just kind of puttering around the house, and when I heard what you were talking about today, I'm just like, oh, that's me, or that was me. I just think it's just such an important thing to talk about, right? Like what I was thinking a lot about when you were talking was that quote that goes like, we accept the love we think we deserve. And I think that,
Mm-hmm.
specifically myself coming from, I definitely have, I didn't have a great upbringing, and I wasn't really taught, I wasn't accepted or really loved and cared for by my parents. So there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely that codependency, that like searching for that love and accepting whatever I got, because I didn't even know what that should look like. I didn't know that I should be soothed and accepted for, it's okay to cry kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I was definitely addicted to love. I was literally a serial dater for a long time. I stayed in a relationship for 7 years, and I got married to someone that I mean, he wasn't abusive, but he did not even know me, because I morphed into someone else because I wanted to be accepted. I didn't even know who I was as a being. And that's
Mm,
what happens. I feel like we get lost into other people because we're not taught, or I wasn't taught, that it's okay to be me. It's okay to have boundaries, right? It's okay to communicate
absolutely.
those things. It's okay to be exactly who I am. But when we just want that love, when we're seeking that love because we don't even know what that is, like, it's so easy just to accept anything, right? Because we just want, like, who doesn't want, I think there's a lot of things in our lives, but I think we all should be given that love and acceptance, and we're not all given that. So it's
Right.
sometimes, right, we have to do that as adults. And the what you're talking about, the process of, like, healing, like that inner child work that I've been doing, like, I'm not done, and I can see, I still see, like, kind of patterns of my old behavior of, like, getting, like, kind of lost because I'm in a new relationship now, and this is the first healthy, I would say, more healthy relationship I've been in. And it's still noticing those patterns or those thought processes of, like, oh, should I do this now? Should I be more like this? Should I be like that? And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah,
Anna, hold up. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. You are, if you're feeling away, like, you don't need, you're not changing anyone else. Like, this is for you.
that's
If there's
right.
something that's not right, reevaluate yourself, right? Look at yourself, check yourself. And
Hmm.
I think that goes back to, like, me, I'm all about self-love, right? All about self-acceptance and
Yeah.
that mindfulness, having those practices, evaluating what you need. Like, we should love ourselves first before really trying to get other people, or trying to get other people to love us. That's, like, another thing. It's like, why are we trying to get other people to love us when we should just be ourselves? And with that alignment, you will find people that will already love you just as you are. So it's like,
Yes.
it's finding
Yes.
those beautiful things. So I just love this topic. Of course, I love all of your topics. So thank you for talking about this. But I'm going to yield the mic for a moment because I just get so excited. But thank you for letting me share, and thank you again, yeah, just for speaking.
No, I appreciate that, and thank you for sharing that because it really does. I'm just like Anna was just saying. I mean, we have to get to that place where we're seeing it ourselves, and we have to, there's a catalyst usually. There's some kind of a trip point that we're like, wait a minute, this is not right, and this is not me. This is not fulfilling me, and and sometimes don't get frustrated if you are dealing with some things from your past and your childhood. It's okay. It took a while for that to form, and it can take a little while for you to resolve past it. But you can and you will if you have that conscious viewpoint. You can get past whatever. But don't feel overwhelmed like, oh yeah, well that I'm 40 years old or I'm 50 years old. And that happened a long time ago. There's no change in that. No, there's always going to be changing it, and you just take little things at a time. And so I love your share there, Anna. Skinny, welcome up to the stage as well, man. Would love to hear from you.
What's up, brother?
Hey, man.
Hello, Anna. You know, I had, and it took a long time, but I had a couple of real cruel lessons in the whole love situation. And I don't know if you remember the movies that Kurt Russell was in, the Escape from New York, Escape from L.A.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, I became Snake Plissken in the relationship.
Okay. All right.
And I was trying to escape, and I finally one day after about 8 years I realized it's me that's got me trapped in this relationship because I don't have to be here. I don't have to be doing this to myself.
Yeah.
I don't have to be upset all the time. I don't have to be, the trust was gone, everything was gone.
Right.
And I'm an artist, and you and I have discussed that, and one side effect, I'll call it, of being an artist is you're an overthinker. You're an enabler.
Yes.
So, and
Yeah.
and I seen something the other day that just struck home with me and reminded me of all that because it said an overthinker will overthink everything, and if there's nothing wrong or it don't make sense, they'll overthink it until it does.
Yeah.
And so, I had to learn to not only self-identify and take a whole look at it and say, okay, what's my part in this? What am I doing? and what can I fix, what can I change, whatever, versus what's going on in this relationship that I can't change, that I have no control over, that is up to the other person. And by doing that, I mean totally, completely not being selfish, not saying, okay, they have to
Yeah.
do all this,
Yeah.
and so, and transference is a big deal in a lot of relationships. And I think people miss that because we'll transfer some of the baggage from the past, maybe, or some of our anger about something that's going on in our life or frustrations or whatever onto that other person and then blame them for the relationship being bad.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to make sure what I brought into that relationship, what I was doing in that relationship, what was my part in that relationship. And pretty soon I figured out, well, of course, I was with a narcissistic person.
Hmm.
And I hate to admit this, most guys won't. I'm a codependent type person in a sense.
Hmm.
I like being in a relationship. I need to be in a relationship. In my mind, I'm better when I'm in a relationship, if
I,
that makes sense,
it does. It does.
you know.
Yeah.
And so I was holding on to my need for a relationship, though there really wasn't a relationship. It was very one sided. She was very narcissistic, and it was, but here I was killing myself in this relationship. And I mean, honest to God, it got to the point to where it became physical for me because, I was having the constant migraines all the time. I was having panic attacks. Stuff I didn't even understand. I didn't even know what a panic attack was till I had.
Right.
And so I was going through this horrible stuff, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, just on and on and on. And it was horrible until I realized, wait a minute, this is my part. And I'm working towards fixing that and all this, but she's not reciprocating that. She's not doing anything differently. She's not even trying. And I started realizing she was narcissistic. And I'm like, holy crap, how come I didn't realize this before? And the type of person I am is never going to work with a narcissistic person. It ain't going to work. Don't matter what the situation is, just not going to work. So I knew I had to get out of it. I knew I had to get away from it. I had to separate myself from it entirely because it was terrible for me. But then when you got the heartstrings attached, then it becomes that escape from New York kind of situation to where you're Snake Plissken and you're trying to escape it. And you realize the biggest enemy you're trying to escape is yourself. Because I was the one keeping myself in it. I
That's
was the one running with it. You know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, and that's a man, and that's a great metaphor for anybody that knows those movies, man. It's a great metaphor, and you got stuck into that. You got stuck in the fantasy mode a little bit. You got stuck
Yeah,
into that place where you're holding on to something, hoping, wishing that it would change, but then not really at the first wanting to really face the fact of what the reality
right.
was.
Well,
And,
how many times and this was a question my mother asked me that made a whole lot of sense, and she never really had talked to me about this particular relationship before.
mhm.
But I called her one day and I was kind of broken, and I mean, of course, it was in the aftermath. And Mom asked me a simple question. She said, "How many times does somebody need to put the knife in your back before you realize they're your enemy?"
That's it. That's
And I
it.
said, "Damn, that makes sense." you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. Yes, it
like,
does.
so it was just like mind blown situation. But I like how you said that we're addicted to love. You and I are fellow artists, so you
Hmm.
know where I'm coming from. That we have this innate need to please people. If we're not trying to please the crowd, we're
Right.
trying to please other people around us. We want to be liked and accepted. We want, and so much goes into it, and we're overthinkers, and we're constantly like my mind's constantly working. I'm constantly getting lyrics. I'm constantly getting ideas. I'm a creator by nature, so I'm constantly, and it becomes this overwhelming mass flow of ideas and thoughts, you know, and I have this innate need to have somebody beside me to share that with and to be with, and I feel like I'm not complete without that other person. Well, today I've escaped New York, obviously, and I relocated, and it took an extreme measure, but I relocated 800 plus miles from everything I knew to start over, to start fresh. And I'm 45 years old. It's not easy at 45, believe that. But I escaped that narcissistic relationship. I got away from it entirely, completely, got that person out of my life completely. And as hard as it is starting over, I feel good today. I don't feel like I have to have that other person now. I want that other person in my life,
Right, right.
but I no longer feel like, and now I think once you sit and really look at things on a full scale and look at yourself and play the tape all the way through,
Hmm.
I think you get a better idea of who you are. And this is what I would say to anybody, and it's been said a million times. Whatever you let somebody do to you, however you let somebody treat you, that's teaching everybody around you how to treat you.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
so I had to learn that too. I had to learn that too. So I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of people, family even, from my life, and I had to separate from them because that was the situation that I had dealt with for so long, and I had covered these things up because, like you said, I was living in fantasy land. In my mind, there was still hope. There was a way to save this relationship. There was a way to save this friendship, and all these things.
Hmm.
When it wasn't reality at all. The reality of it was, I was beating a dead horse, fighting for nothing, and the
Yeah.
only one it was costing was me.
Yeah.
I apologize for going on that big spiel,
No,
but
no, I'm loving your share, man. And and what you just stated, I mean, that sadly, that's that routine and that's that structure that people get stuck in, and now
yeah,
you're stuck in, and that becomes your normal. What is
yeah,
your normal becomes, yeah, this is me living in my narcissistic relationship, but that's what I'm now. I've just kind of learned to live with it, kind of thing,
yeah,
and you just
yeah.
keep going until there's not much left of you at all.
Well,
You
and
know,
another thing that people don't realize about ours, we are sporadic. That's been told to me a million times, and I agree. We're very sporadic people.
right?
There was a time in my life when I went to bed in Kentucky, and if the mood hit me at 3 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, I might be heading out for Texas. You know,
Right? Sure.
I went through that whole thing. But what people don't realize is we're actually creatures of habit.
Yeah.
You know, we like change to a certain extent, but not really.
Yeah.
I always like a routine in my life to an extent. At
Hmm.
least as it relates to relationships. I like my small circle of friends because
Hmm.
I was an entertainer.
Hmm.
I get all the people I want when I go out and play.
Sure.
So I like my small circle of friends, but I like that one particular person to be there when I come home. That kind of thing. That person that knows me outside of the music, off away from the stage, away from the studio, away from whatever I'm doing.
Hmm.
So we get addicted to having that person there, and even if it's the wrong person, we'll keep them there.
Yeah.
We'll tell
Yeah.
ourselves, well, for all the shit I'm going through, I'd rather have them here,
Right.
and that is
And
such the wrong approach.
that's right, because you start juggling that out. You're like, well, what's the way in here? And can I
Hmm.
live with this? Opposed to, do I want to be alone, or do I want to just continue to go through the motions and live in my fantasy world? And a lot of
All right.
times, people will always choose the fantasy world at that moment. And
Well,
sadly, it takes hitting that wall. It takes hitting that
yeah,
personal wall before you're like, wait a minute. Like there's really nothing else for you to give except for whatever you're making up in your brain.
and for the ladies, I will tell you this: do not ever think that men don't go through some of the same things that you guys do. Because here's the deal: I'm 45 years old. I have gray hair now. I don't
Right.
look like I did when I was 25.
Right.
That is a huge fear for a man, probably more even than it is for women to some degree, because we size ourselves up against other men, and I know women do that thing with other women, but there comes a plateau in a man's life to where he's like, geez, I just don't. I'm afraid of being alone, and I'm scared to go out there because here I am, I'm gray headed now, and this, that, and the other, and I'm older, and yada, yada, yada. And we'll make all these excuses that is just basically predicated by fear
Yeah. Yeah.
to stay in something. And that's why we stay into the bitter end a lot of times. And women do it too. I'm not taking anything away from the women, but I'm just trying to let the ladies know we actually go through that same shit too. We
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah.
Men
Well,
are men are chicken shit when it comes to relationships. We really are.
well, and it comes down to also when you have gotten stuck in that rut before. Well, the thing
Hmm.
that gets tarnished the most is your aspect of self worth, your
Yes.
aspect of what your own value is, and when you have come through a narcissistic relationship, a lot of times, man, your value system is screwed up, and you've lost that. You've lost your angle of that confidence, your self confidence, your self talk. Now you're getting more
Hmm.
critical about yourself. You get more, your worth becomes questionable in your own
Right.
mind, and that's the part that's going to mess you up. And but you're right. I mean, no, this is something that's. I mean, it's for men and women, and and it's just important that you if you're when you're able to really identify that place that you realize you're living in fantasy land, and
Hmm.
you got to come back to the reality. And hey, sometimes it's going to be packing up the car and moving 800 miles away. Sometimes it's going to have to be cutting out all those toxic people that we've allowed ourselves to get connected with. And sometimes
Yep.
that is family, and it's hard. But you got to take care of you, because if you don't take care of you, well, you're going to end up just over again, repeating the same cycle with the same kind of people, with the same negative, and then you're living in a shell. You're living
Oh yeah.
in something that's not even at all even remotely close to being a productive, happy, loving situation.
Right.
You know,
And
and we all deserve that.
for all the sacrifices I made, for all the things I tried to do in the relationship, and here's the creepiest part for me, looking back. I moved 800 miles away to get away from all of the garbage in my life and to get a fresh start, and I brought her with me.
Oh wow. Okay.
I brought her with me because I
Yeah.
was so scared to let go. And
Right.
looking at it now, I'm like, what the hell was I scared to let go of? There was nothing.
Right.
But I brought her with me, and it was like a week before Christmas.
Wow.
So I even missed out on my family get-togethers and all that to come out and do this. And but in my mind, it was going to be great for both of us, give us both a fresh start.
Right.
Not realizing she liked the way things was.
Of course.
She liked having, because she liked being able to take off on me for weeks or months at a time or whatever the case.
Right.
So then I got a reality check in a big way, and then I'll shut up. But all that culminated in standing at my best friend's brother's house on Christmas Eve, honest truth, watching her leave me on camera.
Wow.
After she left on Christmas Eve, was gone for 5 hours. We were gone. They had cameras here at home, and something set the cameras off. Well, it was her. She was coming back to get her stuff. I didn't even know she was leaving or nothing. She comes back in 5 hours later, drunk, grabs up her stuff, heads out the door, and went back to where we came from.
Mm.
Only after she had. And I'm sitting there, I'm so upset about it. Yeah, of course, Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And, I come all this way to start over for us, and we're not here a week, and this happens, and I'm just floored. And then I'm standing out there on the porch, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. Maybe, just maybe, this is God or whatever this big thing in the universe is that we believe is there. Because different people believe different ways. But maybe this is God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. Because obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
I should have, when she left the last time, that should have been the last time. And instead, here I am, coming out here to start over in a great situation with great friends and a great support system for the first time in my life. And I'm doing something that I needed to do years ago. But I'm still bringing a very big source of the garbage with me. And I'm standing there upset because it's removing itself from my life. I'm
Well,
like,
that's the thing.
wow.
Well, and that could have been that was kind of you hitting your emotional wall, man,
Hmm.
that you needed to
Yeah.
hit.
And
And
I mean, it tore me down for a few weeks. I went through the depression and the anger, and
right,
it just, but it was so different than anything that I ever felt before or ever dealt with before.
absolutely,
And I just, on a deeper level, I understood who I was, and I finally decided, and this is the end of the story here. At the end of the day, I decided this is who I am. I like who I am. I'm not a bad guy.
right, right.
I know I'm not perfect, and in the next relationship, there's things I'm sure I'm going to have to work on. But I'm never going to settle for any less than what I want ever again.
There you go. That's right,
You know,
man.
I'm not going to be escaping New York anymore. you know,
Yeah. No, man. Skinny, listen, that one. Thank you for that share. I know that. I mean, that was a deep and
I'm
personal
sorry to
share,
come
but
in your show and
no, no,
run
no,
off,
no.
man.
I I really I respect your share, and I'm glad to hear that you are where you are now, and
Oh yeah.
that's the that's the joy at the end of that tunnel, and
Hmm.
and you hit the nail on the head, man. Like, yeah, don't now you've learned it, now you've grown past it, and now you're not going to let yourself go back there and live in that fantasy world again, you know,
Exactly.
because
Exactly. Because the cost is way more than you'll ever benefit from it.
the cost is absolutely, absolutely.
Can I
Well,
comment?
man, thank you so much. Oh yeah, please, Anna, go ahead.
Oh, I just got so excited because I just feel like there's just so many beautiful shares. But what really stuck out to me, what you said earlier, is your name Skinny? The real Skinny? Am I saying
Yes.
it
Yes.
right? Hello.
Hello.
What really stuck out, and I think what's really important is like you said, you want versus need. When we feel like we need someone in our lives, I feel like that's where it can be like toxic and like unhealthy. But when you're ready and you want someone in your life and you're aligned with yourself so much, I feel like that's the difference. I just like really picked up on that difference, is like the want and the need. And I feel like that's like when we feel like we like that need, that's like that codependency, that heaviness. But when we're like aligned with ourselves, we know what we want within ourselves, we're able to like find that within others as well. I think that different language there, and I feel you. I just want to also say that I'm proud of you, because I feel like when we're finding and accepting the like really good people in our life and we're aligning with ourselves, like that's when the magic and the beauty happens. And it sounds like you went through a lot and it was a process, but it sounds like you know your worth and you know what you're looking for in another person, and you are aligning with those truths. And that's so important, because I think that's an example, right? We show that like when we're taking care of ourselves and not being stuck in those really awful relationships, and we're waking up and being mindful, that's a great practice for others too. So that's all I want to say. I really appreciate all the words that you had to say, and yeah, good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank Trinity because it's there's something to be said, first off, to hear a guy like Trinity who is as in touch with his feelings and emotions, and he comes, he's into the psychological aspect of things, and I really appreciate him because he takes his time out of his schedule, his daily life, to come in and drop these little pearls for us. And it just, I've gotten so much from listening to his shows, and I've gotten to where now I hate missing shows. uh, you know and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you, sir. Most
Man,
definitely.
well, thank you for that. Thank you for that so
I
much. Yeah.
agree. I
And and Anna, thank you for pouring in as well. That was you hit the nail on the head with things I was thinking, because yeah, the difference in understanding want and need, that's epic. And when you start learning that real concept, that's when you can start actually reprogramming that subconscious. That's when you can start realigning yourself with where you need to be, you know, and and that is that's that healthy place, and we want to stay in that mode. We want to stay in a cycle where we can learn from it. And listen, I've shared this in other topics, and I'm not going to go all the way down into it right now, but my last relationship, narcissistic sociopath, and it was not a good situation. And we have to learn and grow from things, though. And as long as we're able to maintain our practice of what we're going to do for us. How are you going to take care of you? Because if you let yourself get to a place where you're there's nothing left, you've given it all out and you've let other people just siphon out of you. Well, and then whenever if you're the type of person, just like what Skinny was saying too, like I'm the same way. Like I would like to, of course, I would like to be in a relationship. I'd like to be with somebody that loves me and I love them, that's healthy and reciprocal, and we want those things. But at the same token, you can't go from nasty, negative, harmful, abusive from one to another to another to another, because what's going to happen is you're stuck in that routine that you've made being with a narcissist what you're used to. You've made being with that in that abusive environment what you're used to, and now the next person that comes along that has the exact same traits, well, it's familiar. It's what I can. That's what I'm used to dealing with anyway. And you know what? Maybe this one's going to be better. Maybe I'm going to change this one. Maybe you would never ever change that situation because you haven't changed yourself, and you'll continue to repeat that toxic, nasty cycle over and over again until you're sitting alone and feeling alone, and you got nothing left that you're connected to, and you're wondering, man, what happened? Well, what happened was you didn't wake up, and you got to wake up. You got to wake up and realize your situation. You got to wake up and change that fantasy land to where your reality is there. You want to be living in a context where sometimes you got a hard time going to sleep. You know why? And that's because your reality is all of a sudden so much fucking better than your dreams. That's where I want to be. That's where I want to be.
Absolutely.
So,
and I'll say this to Anna's point, and then I will promise I will shut up. I had to get to a place in life, we start out wanting all these things for our life, and I wanted, but I didn't really want anything that I actually needed. And today, my needs have become my wants,
I love that.
and that's a full circle transition from who I ever thought I was going to be, and what I actually needed. I never would have dreamed that's really what you need. And I'm like you, Trinity. I want a relationship, but I don't need one. I don't have to have one now. I don't want to be alone. No, I don't think anybody does. But I want a relationship, but I want a healthy one.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, guys, I want to thank Anna and Skinny for jumping up here and sharing. I mean, just really powerful shares right here. I do want to give a shout out to you guys that are listening. If anybody else wants to come up, I'm going to be closing out here shortly. But if anybody else wants to come up and add in, you're still more than welcome to. But I just want to say, Mark, Lauren, Rachel, Truth, Lynette. Guys, I want to thank you guys for being here. I hope you're able to kind of pull in some life food from this, and and back to the point. I mean, look, we do. We all deserve to be loved. We all want to be loved, and that's good. That's healthy. That's what we are human beings, and we were created to actually wander around just all by ourselves, never having interaction. No, we need that. We need interaction. We need reciprocal, though. You need to aim for reciprocal. Love should be reciprocal and naturally reciprocal. If you're having to force it, you need to back up. You don't force true love. You should never have to force being happy. It should be something that's organic. It's natural. It's there. And then start to align with people that truly align with the healthy version of you, the reality version of you, not the fantasy. The healthy reality. That's what you need to connect to. And I tell people this all the time, and it's a little bit off topic, but not really. But I tell people, like, you need to do a fresh eval of your inner world, your inner circle. Who do you have connected to you? Friends, all this stuff. Who do you have connected to you? And are they draining you or are they filling you? And you gotta look at that sometimes. And if it's somebody that's draining you out, that they're toxic, and you're like, oh, that's just Jim, or that's just Susie. I've known them for 30 years. That's just how they are, whatever. No, that's what you're accepting. That's what you're allowing. That's what you're condoning. That's what you're saying. It's okay. It's just like what Skinny said. Look, how you let other people treat you and what you surround yourself with, that's what you're showing anybody else out there that's new that you're going to connect with. That's what they're going to see. Now all of a sudden you have the same characteristics as all those other people that are around you that are toxic, because that's what you're allowing to be connected to you. That's what you're making okay. That's what you're making your daily in your world. Don't do that. I'm telling you. And I do want to mention on this, I'm really encouraging guys. Next week is going to be a very powerful week. I'm doing a 5-part series that starts on Monday, and I'm going to be discussing narcissistic relationships. I'm going to be discussing, psychopathic behavior in relationships, the emotional abuse, sometimes the physical abuse, how we come out of that, how we deal with that. We're going to be talking about the after effect and what the recovery process is, but how to avoid this. But we're really going to be doing a deep dive all week long. Please don't miss it. It's going to be really epic. And so it's good stuff. And so guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you everybody that's been here listening. And I hope that your week is coming to a close in a very productive, happy, healthy way. And I will definitely be seeing you guys tomorrow at 11:30. And until then, I hope you have a very blessed, wonderful, and happy rest of your day, rest of your week. And we will talk to you next time. Till then, be happy, be healthy.
Thank you, sir.
It's no secret